Hey West Michigan, it's Congresswoman Scholten back for another episode of Straight Talk with Scholten. We're once again on the brink of a government shutdown, a pattern that has become all too familiar in our modern day political world. However, it doesn't have to be this way. In fact, it shouldn't be this way. Let's get into it. Our government operates on a spending schedule that starts and ends at the end of September, the fiscal year, as it's commonly referred to. It ends on September 30th and starts again on October 1st. It's not a surprise. It literally happens on the same day every year. Here in Congress and in the House of Representatives specifically, we are tasked with setting the spending levels for around 25% of all government functions through 12 major spending bills known as regular appropriations. This impacts everything from the Department of Defense to the Food and Drug Administration. If we fail to pass these packages by the September 30th deadline, one of two things happen. We can approve a short-term bill that kicks the can down the road and buys more time to negotiate spending limits, or the government shuts down. Now, the party in charge is responsible for making sure we have a plan to avoid a shutdown by getting a budget passed or a workable short-term extension. Currently, Republicans are in charge of all three branches of government, and they can determine whether we pass a budget or shut down. So first, let's discuss these short-term funding bills, which are also known as continuing resolutions, or CRs. They can be enacted for part of a fiscal year or enacted for the full year to supplement a regular spending package. They have become an all too regular tool in Congress where we repeatedly struggle to complete our appropriations on time. The last time we fully funded all 12 spending bills, take a guess, 1996. Safe to say it has been a while. As it stands now, Speaker Johnson has proposed a continuing resolution that would go through November 21st, 2025. You may hear some talk right now about whether this is or not what's called a clean CR. Two things on that. One, here are the facts. Overall, this bill would cut $13 billion from domestic spending from the previous fiscal year, while also proposing funding adjustments for some federal programs, including an additional $6 billion in defense funding. So less money for things like school and SNAP, more money for bombs and tanks. Listen, I support defense, but we got to feed our families and support our farmers. Second, whether or not this is a clean CR is beyond the point. Republicans are in charge. They have to present a workable solution. That's not this proposal. I'm at the table, willing to work with Republicans to get this across the finish line. I have proposed a number of compromise solutions that we could work on to keep the government open and running, all of them surrounding making healthcare better for Americans. We could do things like extend the ACA tax credits, which we discussed in last week's episode, reinstate much needed NIH funding, or make some changes to the Medicaid cuts that they just did, like making work requirements annual instead of twice a year. Today in the House, we voted on this CR, since we only have 2 legislative days left before the September 30th deadline. It passed by a narrow margin. So here's what happens next. It moves to the Senate for consideration. If it passes there, we've kicked the can down the road for now, but we're going to have to do this all over again come mid-November. Now, keep in mind that Senate Democrats have also introduced their own version of a CR, which includes an extension of the ACA tax credits. So we have alternatives, but we're running out of time before a shutdown happens. When a government shutdown happens, this is the second option, essential services and government functions slow or sometimes come to a complete halt. This threatens livelihood, paychecks, well-being of everyone who works for the government or relies on government services like food stamps or housing assistance. A loss or lapse in funding impacts federal agencies' overall operations, and while members of Congress still get paid themselves. In a very long and painful shutdown in 2018 and 2019, some of our coasties had to rely on food banks to get by, literally doing food drives for our service members. It was unconscionable, all because of political games in Washington. West Michigan, let me give it to you straight. Continuing resolutions and government shutdowns are not how we should be running our government. If we don't stand up now, when will we? Neither of these options are ideal. The American people depend on our federal government to run smoothly. Thousands of federal workers nationwide depend on the federal government to pay their bills and keep food on the table. I am a firm believer that this shouldn't be how we do politics in Washington. I came here to find comprehensive, common sense solutions to real problems. Government spending being one of them. I believe that we can and should do better for the American people. That's what I'll remain committed to, West Michigan. Thank you for tuning in. Keep staying informed. Keep taking part in our democracy. And I'll see you next time.